The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Pray, therefore, the Lord of the harvest to send out his laborers into his harvest. These words are familiar to all of us, I believe. They're often the words that we use to support our desire to pray for vocations, particularly vocations to the priesthood. As you know, vocations have been on the decline for the last little while, especially in our modern Western society, in North America and in Europe. In other parts of the world, such as in Africa or in parts of Asia, like the Philippines and India, the seminaries are bursting at the seams with vocations. In fact, they don't even have enough places in the seminaries to accommodate the vocations, and so they have to turn vocations away. God continues to call men to serve as priests in his church. It's not that the call of God has become weakened in our Western society by God's part. God continues to call, but sometimes the situation and the circumstances in which we live in our contemporary materialistic world especially don't foster that spirit of vocations. As we all know, we live in a culture where everything is focused on personal pleasure and personal happiness and growth. We just walk into any bookstore and we have shelves and shelves of books on self-help. But there's very little in terms of helping our neighbor or in service to our neighbor. And so that shows what our culture is centered on. And because our culture is very self-centered, vocations have a difficult time to bear fruit. Because ultimately a vocation is not something that a person chooses for themselves, especially a vocation to the priesthood. One is not ordained a priest for oneself or for one's own happiness or even one's own personal spiritual growth. A man is ordained to the priesthood in order to serve others, in order to give himself selflessly to the sheep of which Jesus is speaking in today's gospel, the sheep who are like a sheep without a flock, without a shepherd. And so God calls shepherds to his church, but we need to put into place the right circumstances to be able to foster those vocations. Young men today who think about becoming priests, very often their thoughts of a vocation are kind of suppressed by all of the message that they're hearing in the society around them. And so it's difficult for them to actually respond to that call. Because responding to the call doesn't just mean listening to what God is saying in one's heart, but it also means making those concrete choices, making that next step towards embracing fully that vocation or that call. And so we need to pray today, dear brothers and sisters, we need to pray in today's society for not just an increase in numbers of vocations, but we need to pray the Lord of the harvest to send forth shepherds, true shepherds, into his harvest, which is the church. We don't just want many vocations. We don't want numbers. We want holy vocations. We want men who will dedicate themselves faithfully to the church as faithful priests, and we want men and women who will faithfully decide to consecrate themselves to the consecrated or religious life as a brother or a sister. And of course, as we all know, vocations to married life as well is something that's on the decline. So many couples today are choosing not to become married. And so we need to really pray to the Lord of the harvest, the Lord and Master of the church, and ask him to continue not just to bless us with vocations, but to give us the grace of responding to those vocations that he places in our hearts. And of course, we have a role as a parish community as well to pray for an increase in vocations and holy vocations. And that's why I'm very pleased that ever since I arrived in this parish, we have a tradition of praying that prayer for vocations to the priesthood at the end of every Mass, that prayer that Archbishop Prendergast composed for the year of the priest. So brothers and sisters, let us take to heart the words of Jesus and keep in our prayer that intention for holy vocations, so so that the church, so that the people of God may have true shepherds, shepherds after the heart.